Jonathan Tessier, and we're here back with one of our health tip videos with our nutritionist, Rebecca. How are you doing, Rebecca?
I'm good today. How are you, Jonathan?
I'm doing pretty good. Have you been stressed or anything like that lately?
Well, I mean, the election's happening, the power outage, all of that. I mean, I try to keep it under control for the most part, but I think we were all feeling it the past few weeks a little bit.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid sometimes with everything going on in the world.
Yes.
That's why we're going to do a little bit of a video right now about dealing with stress and anxiety. So let's just dive right into it. How can the food we eat contribute to our stress and anxiety? Are there foods we should avoid, and are there foods we should prioritize?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Three things come up kind of when I think about this. One is blood sugar, which I know we've talked about in a previous video, but we'll talk a little bit about that today. The other is the microbiome, which we'll get into a little further later, but that's an important factor. And the third thing is nutrient deficiencies. Blood sugar can have a really huge impact on stress and anxiety if we're not fueling ourselves properly so that we're like, we can sustain ourselves for, 2 to 3 hours kind of after a meal. Our blood sugar can rise and just fall, and that can contribute to a lot of anxiety. So that's one factor, is making sure that your meals include fat, fiber, and protein. Generally the carbs are going to sneak themselves in there, but if you can make sure that all those things are included and you're getting a sufficient amount of especially protein in your meals, you'll be satiated longer and your blood sugar will be more stable. And it's often, that hypo kind of glycemic response that can lead us to having some anxiety. I know we can probably mostly relate to being a little bit hangry. That's kind of what that is. So that's your blood sugar. The other thing is just nutrient deficiencies. So it's really important that we're eating a variety of different foods, different types of foods, different colors of foods, so we're getting a variety of just nutrients in our diet, because different deficiencies can play a role in kind of adding to some stress and adding to some anxiety. And then the last thing is that gut-brain connection. So if we're eating a lot of high sugar foods, a lot of really processed foods, that can wreak some havoc on our second brain, like our gut. And there's a very strong connection between our gut and our brain. And when that's not, maybe we have an imbalance of bacteria, too much of one bacteria, not enough of another, that can lead to some stress and anxiety as well. So kind of those three things. So eating diverse foods, making sure you're keeping your blood sugar stable with fat, fiber, and protein included in your meals. And then also making sure, you're not having too much non-gut healthy foods. So gut healthy foods would include your fermented foods, diverse fiber, soluble and insoluble fiber in your foods as well. And again, that diversity of different colors in your food.
So can timing of meals impact how we cope with stress throughout the day?
Absolutely. So that kind of does go back to that blood sugar picture. So, that we're eating, our meals spaced out in a way that we're not really having our blood sugar really drop, and we're not having that kind of hangry feeling. But the other thing is your circadian rhythm. So your body loves to operate on rhythms, and that's a way that we can tell our bodies that we're safe, is timing our meals fairly consistently, which I know that I could do better at, but yeah, setting that rhythm okay, every morning when I wake up around 8 a.m. I make sure I have a good healthy breakfast, and then I'm eating again at noon, and then I'm having a snack maybe in between there, and then I'm having my dinner say at 6 o'clock. As an example, that's a really nice way to tell your body that you're safe, and it knows kind of when to expect that. So especially if you're going through something stressful, there are times, you're not always going to be able to eat at the same time every single day, but that's kind of a great tool to leverage if you're going through a stressful time, is that anchoring your body kind of in those consistent meal times can be really helpful.
What role does gut health play in influencing stress and anxiety?
Yeah, so gut health is a really important factor to consider when stress and anxiety is something that you're trying to manage. For example, 90% of serotonin is actually made in our gut. We think of these neurotransmitters, they're coming from our brain, but there is such a strong connection there that many of them are made in our gut. So gut health is a really important factor. I'm sure a lot of us have heard a lot of talk about that gut-brain connection, probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics, and all of that is to keep our gut in balance. So we don't want too much of any good bacteria or too little of even bad bacteria, which is kind of funny. I'm trying to move away from the good and bad bacteria, because it's all this fine kind of symphony that you want happening in your gut.
So beyond diet, what are some lifestyle changes that people can make to help with their stress and anxiety?
Yes, yeah. So there's a million different kind of things that you could implement to help manage your stress and anxiety. The first question that I would ask myself is, am I taking time for myself in a day? There's so many, I mean, we're all so busy, but I think of kind of that avatar of like that busy mom that's busy taking care of her family. Maybe she has elderly parents she's taking care of, and then her kids, and she gets lost in the mix. So that would be the first thing I would ask is, am I taking any time for myself in a day? And then carving out, even if it's just 15 minutes, to do something. So maybe, that's reading a book, or sitting down in a quiet room with a tea, or going for a walk. So it could be as simple as that, just carving out that time to get your body out of that fight or flight state and into that rest and digest state. But yeah, there's lots of different avenues that you can take. So I think it's just whatever kind of piques your interest, whether it's movement, and you need to get your 1 hour at the gym, every 4 or 5 days a week or whatever it is, that's going to be helpful. Maybe it's just a meditation practice in the morning, as simple as 5 minutes in the morning, or whenever you can fit it in a day. It can be that simple. Maybe it's breath work that you're kind of participating in. So many different avenues that you can kind of take, but the first thing I would think is, okay, have I taken 15 minutes to get in that parasympathetic or rest and digest state today? And that can look so many different ways for so many different people.
Absolutely. So those are all great suggestions. I know when some people are stressed, they consume caffeine, and how does that affect anxiety and stress? And are there good substitutes for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So everyone responds to caffeine differently. I'm sure you've heard of people who can at midnight have a cup of coffee and go to bed. I'm not in that camp. I kind of should stop drinking coffee around noon, or I find it does impact my sleep. And that is said to come down often to liver function, different pathways in your liver and how they're kind of responding to that. But so everyone responds to caffeine a little bit differently, and you probably know where you land on that spectrum. So, just being, I think mindfully consuming caffeine is important. But for those of us who know that maybe it's not, maybe afternoon, we like to have a cup, but we know it's not in our best interest. There's so many different kind of alternatives that you can have. One example is matcha. So matcha has your caffeine in it, but it also has L-theanine in it. So instead of getting this big spike of like maybe jittery kind of energy that often some of us can get from too much caffeine, the L-theanine in matcha kind of rounds out that spike, so it's a little bit more of like a focused energy instead of like a chaotic, maybe jittery energy. So that's one alternative, but there's many on the shelf. We've got many different options. One is the one we package. It's an Inca coffee substitute, so often it's like chicory and barley and dandelion kind of a substitute that way. We've got lots of different teachino options, so it's like a little tea bag, but they've kind of added some flavoring to make it taste a little more like coffee. So if that's something you're looking for, we have many options on the shelf for caffeine substitutes. But yeah, I think it can really impact our anxiety, because especially if we're reaching for it and we're not eating with it, that can really make that jittery kind of energy, or we're not drinking enough water. And it's kind of that checklist, like, is it another coffee I need, or do I need some water? Do I need some food, or do I just need to take 5 minutes and just like be for that time?
Exactly, yeah. So there's a lot of substitutes we have here that taste a lot like coffee and just are a lot better for you for your anxiety and stuff like that. I know you mentioned cortisol earlier. Could we talk about that? What role does cortisol play in our stress and anxiety?
Yes, yeah. So cortisol is kind of one of our stress hormones. It's being talked about a lot right now. And cortisol is important. I think we often villainize these different like stress hormones, but it's actually really important. We want a little bit of cortisol when it's like we've got a deadline that's coming up and we need a little boost to help us get whatever that thing is done. But it's really that chronic high state of cortisol that can become problematic. So you're not really responding to things very well. So you think of kind of that response of like when your cortisol is high, if you can think of maybe someone's cut you off in traffic or that kind of thing, that response that goes through your body. Maybe your heart rate kind of increases, your blood pressure can increase, you kind of have that jittery feeling. There's a reason for that, but you don't want that long term. So, and long term, what it can also do is suppress these more calming hormones like dopamine and serotonin and that kind of thing. And over time, with cortisol being high and these, more calming hormones being suppressed, that can really lead to anxiety It can make us have a really hard time sleeping, which again in turn, poor sleep is just going to kind of add to that anxiety as well. So there's lots of different options, you know, that like we had talked about, breath work, yoga, movement are all going to help kind of manage that cortisol response. But really you just don't want it high chronically long term.
Are there any supplements we can take that will help with stress and anxiety?
Yeah, absolutely. There's many different options if you want to come in and chat with us, but I'll go over a few different kind of things that we have. A couple things that are depleted quite quickly when we're under chronic stress or chronic high cortisol is magnesium, vitamin C, and your B vitamins as well. So that's kind of an option to start with. Magnesium I usually suggest, you know, kind of taking before bed, just helps you get that deeper sleep, which of course is going to help bring cortisol down a little bit. Another favorite is Stressed by St. Francis. So it's just a blend of different herbs, a couple different adaptogens in there as well. So an adaptogenic herb is basically, it helps your body adapt to stress. So it's not going to make you respond quicker or slower to stress. It's just kind of modulating and helping you adapt better. And there's lots of different options out there for adaptogens, but this has a couple in here. So for example, rhodiola and ashwagandha are in here. And then some more calming herbs like oat in there as well. So that's one option, is just like an herbal mix. This comes in capsule and in tincture as well. And then you've got, you know, our adaptogens kind of by themselves as well. So ashwagandha here, for example, by Living Alchemy is a great option. Again, helping you adapt to stress over time. And then one of my favorites for in the moment is a chewable L-theanine. If you know, you want, you know, within the next 15 minutes or so to kind of come back down. I'm a big fan of Natural Factors chewable L-theanine. Like I said, L-theanine is that compound that you find in green tea that kind of, instead of making a big, you know, jittery caffeine response, it kind of rounds it out. I find it really calming, really great for focus as well. So that's another option. Another one I didn't actually pull is Rescue Remedy. That's a really nice, you can do it in drops, or we have little candies. It's a homeopathic option for just kind of quickly bringing on calm. Whereas an adaptogen is something you'd want to take kind of over a period of time, and then you'd see the result after a period of time. But where L-theanine is great for kind of that quick in the moment, bringing you back down. So just a few different options. I know a lot of us at Joann's have our different favorites for helping our customers manage stress. So come in and talk to someone, they'll have some great ideas for you.
Yeah, so honestly, we have so many we have so many supplements for you to try out here at Joann's place that will help with your stress and anxiety. And we have tons of people here who will give you expert advice, like our nutritionist, Rebecca, who will guide you on your journey through figuring all this out. So that will do it for today, but we'll be back with another health tip video very soon. Have a good one.